Hi, I'm Erica with the Alameda String Academy, and we are going to talk about the hooked bow in Minuet 1 from the Suzuki book number 1. Um, and we're actually going to focus on the G major scale and applying the hooked bow from the first measure of Minuet 1 into the G major scale. Scales in arpeggios are a great place to practice bow technique, left hand technique, really any kind of technique that you might want to learn. Find a way to put it in your scales and arpeggios, and you'll find that it's way easier in your piece once you have it worked out in the scales. So the hooked bow is basically what you get when you put two bows together going in the same direction with a gentle stop in between. This basically is a stroke. Now, in Minuet 1, the whole pattern is one note by itself and then two notes hooked together after that. So this pattern, like that. It's a 3-note pattern. So we're going to apply this to the G major scale just to help us to practice that coordination. You'll notice that as I play the scale, I'm using a much faster bow for my down bow. I really want to travel on this down bow because I need to squeeze 2 notes in on the way back up. So it really helps if I use a lot of bow on the first note and then roughly half and half for the 2 up bow notes hooked together. The thing about that is if I'm using a fast bow for 1 note, and then I have 2 bows that use a slower bow, there's a likelihood, a chance that I might end up with a louder sound in the first, in the down bow. If I'm not careful, I'll end up with this. Okay, and that comes both from the bow speed and also because I'm putting a lot more pressure, or I'm putting about the same amount of pressure to kind of feel like I'm controlling the bow on the down bow as I would be on the ups. So to even this out and to make the sound a little bit more consistent, whether it's a down or an up, or the second up, I'm going to use less bow pressure, which really means I'm going to lighten up my fingers and just help them to guide the bow on the string. They're really like the bus driver in this instance. I'm helping the bow drive in its lane, and I'm using a big, wide, open stroke, and I'm making sure that whatever string I'm on, that my arm, my elevator elbow, is on that string. And as I open up, I'm going to make sure that I have plenty of room and I'm not driving the bow downward and making it heavier by having my elbow lower than it really should be. So my elbow really needs to be in line with my wrist, and then my arm can kind of come out of that from there. And on the way up, you can see I'm giving more space here. I still have a nice line on my forearm, and then there's room here for my fingers to follow the bow. So I have space here to kind of gently stop the notes. If my elbow doesn't lead the way, I really, not only do I not have as much room to get up, but I also don't have as much flexibility in terms of how much weight, arm weight, I put in the bow. So if my arm is it doesn't need to be sticking up, it doesn't need to be really high, but it kind of leads the way in both directions so that there's plenty of room for the joints in your arm, especially your wrist and all of your knuckles and your fingers and your thumb, to have plenty of space to move and do what they need to do. And then you can decide, oh, I think I want to put a little bit more weight in if you want. So a lighter weight and a fast sweeping open motion, pass out your ice cream for your down bows, and then gentle stops on the way up where you're really focusing on keeping your bows, your fingers bent and flexible on the way up, and that wrist and forearm lead the way. So here's the G major scale. Okay, we're going to play all the way through it, 2 octaves plus the arpeggio. 1, 2, 3. There you have it. And of course, in your Suzuki book, you'll see printed that there are actually 3 arpeggios that you can play according to this same method. Now, once you have this down, then the world is really your oyster in terms of how you want to kind of modify or change this practice technique in order to either speed up your fingers or maybe practice different dynamic changes with the same hooked bowing. You might choose to play 1 new note for each bow stroke, so like this. Or you might choose to play down on 1 note and then the 2 up-ups on another note. However you want to do it. Any of these ways to kind of change things up, play around with the patterns, will help kind of make your brain a little bit more flexible and get you really equipped to apply it to your piece. So that is a G major scale with hooked bowing. And yeah, please make sure that you check out the next tutorial specifically on Minuet number 1, measures 1 through 8.